Hello and welcome to Bearded Heretics YouTube. I'm Luke and I'm the Bearded Heretic and this is my YouTube channel. Welcome. So I think we're live. I think everyone can hear me. I think everything's going all right. If you can't hear me or if anything's wrong, please put in the chat. This is the first time I've used slobs and I'm make sure I mute that. Just want to make sure that I can be heard, essentially. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Trolley Dave, Philip. Nice to see you guys here, and Alias Fake Name. Hello. Um. So this is my, I think, second ever live stream. Tried to mix it up a bit, give it a bit of a different look. I thought the plain look was a bit boring, and now I'm like, oh, really excited by this like purpley space look. So yeah, I'm floating in space because I'm cool. Just like Joe, I don't have laser eyes like Joe does. Um, so today we are going to be answering 10 questions for atheists and non-theists by Answers in Reason. Now I am closely affiliated with Answers in Reason. I've appeared on many of their live streams. I think they probably have a good understanding of my position and where I'm coming from. But I guess I want to do this to kind of like make sure that lots of different atheists and different non-theists, well, are being represented, and my views, I think, seem to be a little bit out of the norm for internet atheists. So, and yes, as well, I just am excited to answer some questions. So here we go. I have watched the video, so I know what questions are coming up, but I didn't write any answers down or whatever, and I didn't really think about my answers except for one question, which is going to be a bit more complex. So we will see. We will see how that goes. Have my drink ready. Everyone strap in. Let's do this.
Reason. Answers in Reason is an atheist site and channel that tries to promote good conversations with both theists, atheists, and other forms of non-theists online. We like to discuss philosophy and science and, a bit of theology here and there. Recently, we posted 10 questions for theists, and so far I've been really enjoying the responses as they've been coming in, and I'm really looking forward to reviewing them with Dave in the future. As I've enjoyed them so much, though, I figured it would be good to ask our atheist and non-theist viewers the same sort of questions as well and see what you guys think. I'd really love some video responses if you can to feature on our channel, but if you just want to leave them in the comments on YouTube, that's absolutely fine as well. Question 1. With there being a number of different types of non-theist or atheist, what label do you use for yourself, and what does that mean to you? Now, this question isn't to spark a debate about the definition of atheism, as I think people should be allowed to identify how they like, and the underlying meaning is actually what's important. The purpose of the question is more to act as a census of non-theists and see if folks are using their labels in the same way.
Sorry, that the image I've just paused. That's the best face. That's the best face ever. I'm really happy with that. So, hi Beach One. Nice to see you. And yeah, the Air Guides are doing a great series at the moment where they're asking questions of theists and atheists. So, Bearded Savior. I don't know where this has come from, but Philip and other people seem to be peddling this savior idea. So, I'll take it. I'll take it. Okay, let's get to the question. So what label do you use to describe yourself, and what does that mean to you? So I think the main label is atheist, and what that means to me is that I believe that gods don't exist. For me, it's a bit more than that as well. I don't believe in kind of anything supernatural. I don't think that there is an afterlife. I don't think that there are anything such as ghosts or mythical or magical creatures. I don't believe in magic. I He's just got it's just that little weird smile, Philip. Um, so yeah, it's about it's kind of like my atheism is obviously around God because that's what atheism is. But so I believe gods don't exist. I have strong belief that there aren't gods, and that's kind of any iteration of a god that's been developed. So I'm essentially a global atheist, not just a local one. And I don't see any reason for them to exist. There's a lot of discussions around necessary beings and this and that and that. And in terms of what constitutes a god, I think that as soon as you get into a certain field, it becomes quite liberal definition of what God is. But I think in terms of like the standard gods that we think about that religions tend to be worshippers of, no, I don't think that or anything like them. So that's it. Yeah, atheists. And I suppose the stuff around the like magic and that, I guess that would be not spiritualist, naturalist, I suppose. But I don't really know. Maybe Philip can help me out with that one. Hi, Icarus. Nice to see you here. So yeah, I think that answers that first question. Let's move on to number two. And guys, yeah, if you want to chat in the chat and like have a discourse about this or ask me any questions, then please do. Cause I like that. Really enjoy that. Question two.
Question 2. Have you ever believed in a god? Which religion did you ascribe to, if any? If not, when did you first get introduced to the concept of gods?
So I actually did believe in a god. I watched back my questions for like Ask an Atheist videos, and there was a discussion where it was like it didn't really apply to me because I've not believed in a god for a very long time. So it was about I was basically this is the trouble. Okay, so I wasn't brought up in like a religious household, and I think this is going to lead into a question later on. But the school I went to was Church of England, which is like the state church, and I think that um was I did start believing in God then. I went to church occasionally. I went to Sunday school and stuff. Learned about what God meant. There was like people that would come and talk to us about God. Like there's this guy called Darius who explained the Trinity to us using a banana by splitting it three and then tying it up and saying, "Look, it's three parts, but it's also one." Trying to get across that very. Hey, it's not cosmic glue. It's space. I'm in space. Trying to get that. Um, and yes, okay, naturalism works. Good, glad. I've lost my train of thought. It's gonna be what the stream is like, isn't it? I tried setting everything up nicely, and now my brain's going. Um, where was I? Darius. Darius taught us about the Trinity. So yeah, I learned about gods very young, especially the Christian Protestant version of the Christian God. Um, I when I so I started kind of not believing in God around the age of 8 or 9. It didn't make much sense to me when I was in school, but I was agnostic for a long time. I wasn't sure if I believed or not what I believed in. I thought there probably is something there, probably something after death, because it's in the zeitgeist. It's in the very core of our society that there's life after death. It's everywhere. So I think I had that belief for a long time, and then I dated a Christian girl, daughter of a minister who was very Christian, and she kind of was trying to persuade me to be Christian, which makes sense. And then that fell through. That was like when I was 15, 16. And then went to university, learned about like psychology in more depth and biology and evolution and stuff. And that's kind of when I became an atheist. And I became one of those annoying atheists that I now argue with on Twitter. So yeah, I've been an atheist since I was like, late teens, early 20s. So almost probably about 10 years now. So yeah. So in terms of which religion did I ascribe to? C of E, Christian, Protestant. Yeah. Icarus, was I an agnostic atheist or an agnostic atheist? Well, one, that's not an option because you said agnostic twice, which I think you meant gnostic or agnostic. But two, don't bring that to my stream. You know we don't talk about that stuff here. That's not my bag. I'm better than that. I'm going to go to question 3 now. Thank you for making me laugh, though.
Question 3. Were you brought up in a religious area or with a religious family? How did those people around you react to you coming out as an atheist? If you grew up in a non-religious area and with a non-religious family, how were your first interactions with heavily religious people?
Oh, okay, let me Oh, no, I'm not sorry. That is hilarious. I I love Joe's face. He looks like he's like either shouting at like someone he doesn't like, or that's gonna be half the stream is me laughing at Joe's face. I apologize, Joe. Um, Philip Muller, my adversary, my enemy, my nemesis, has asked, when did you finally realize that religion is a mental illness? I am not going to touch on that here because that's just going to open a can of worms. And Icarus, that is actually Philip's fault that he brought that up. Now I'm not going to stop thinking about that and probably tweet about it and get aggressively dogpiled by a bunch of people who think that religion is a mental illness. So, uh, and yes, so Philip's just said to me as well. Oh right, oh you're right, Luke. It is fun to see you react whilst pretending that nothing is going on. Because when he's streaming with Answers and Reason and I'm in the chat, I'll just chat shit in the chat, and I'll like say something that makes him laugh, and just see him like kind of trying not to burst out laughing, and he's just done it to me. So there we go. Fair play. Well played, Philip. Good job. Anyway, the question. Okay, what question are we on anyway? Question 3? Question 4? Question 3. Yes, question. I didn't realize it was going to be the sort of stream where I'm just laughing more than talking. Was I brought up in a religious household? No. Religious area? No, probably not. I wouldn't say so. I think probably I got brought up in a religious school, but it was like the best school in the area. I think that's why my parents sent me to it. It wasn't like a private school or anything. It was just a regular school, but it was just the best school that was around, and it was CEV, so they had to, kind of enroll me in the church and stuff. Show that I was going to church in order for me to go there at that time. My family weren't particularly religious. I think my mum's probably best described as being agnostic, although leaning towards like atheist end of agnostic. So she's more not convinced than she is convinced. But um, but she, particularly around difficult times when she's bereaved, will have say things like, "Oh, they're in a better place," or stuff like that. So yeah, not a religious family, but a religious school, which I think is probably like a core place, where you do start your socializing and start your thoughts about it. My dad wasn't religious at all, so um, interactions with heavily religious people. I guess my first proper interaction with someone heavily religious was probably that girlfriend that I mentioned. She was part of a charismatic church. Sorry, the chat is really distracting. So, hi Brina, nice to see you here. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you joining us tonight. And I'm looking forward to you joining Answers and Reason. That's going to be a really exciting stream. So yeah, I'll definitely be trying to be involved in that as much as I can. She was quite heavily religious. I'm not sure if she was young earth creationist. I don't think so, but she was was certainly quite strongly religious. So that was an interesting thing. I think probably I understood her views quite well, which meant that, and I have a couple of religious friends, like the ones I've spoken to on my channel and stuff. So, it's like I haven't been cut off from religion in any way, in terms of like, just because I didn't grow up in a religious area. And I think that that's allowed me to kind of understand where they're coming from in their beliefs and stuff like that. So yeah, it's never been hostile, except when I was annoying, uh, debate me bro atheist at university, start of university. Yeah, and Karina says pro dog piling Luke. Even if we agree that religion is not a mental illness, please don't. that literally got me to leave Twitter for like a week because I was just like, no, I can't handle this. So I'd appreciate if you dogpile me in a nice way. Just you go on my messages, be like, Luke, you're great. We support you in every single way. We understand every argument you make. that kind of dogpiling I can get behind. But if you're going to be insulting me and being aggressive, no. Please no. Cool. Let's go on to question 4.
How were your first interactions with heavily religious people? Question 4. What arguments or other evidence do you find most convincing against the existence of gods or various religions?
My pause game is so strong today. Thanks, Dave. So, what arguments or other evidence do I find most convincing against the existence of gods of various religions? Well, it's not really. I just don't think there is any evidence. Trigger warning. No, I'm just kidding. I don't take that approach. I think there is evidence that is against the existence of God. And I don't know, guys, I'm going to ask you quickly, after I give my answer, would you like a quick summary of the null hypothesis and how you can prove a negative, just so we can have that in here? I'm going to, if you do, then just say you do. So, the evidence I find most convincing, divine hiddenness, especially with regards to like the Christian God and I think the Muslim God, who a lot of people say is like entirely loving, like basically the most loving being in the universe, or not in the universe, wherever he is. I think that the argument from hiddenness, where they talk about if God was truly loving, he would want to make contact with you, and if there's somebody who's non-resistant to that, then they ought to have been made contact with in a way that they understand, and that doesn't happen. And you can include like people who don't exist in the like Christian sphere, like people who are isolated from society, who are would be non-resistant to God's beliefs, God's contact. So I think for me, that's a really strong one. You guys, right? It doesn't matter. you are making me react by saying you're great. I really appreciate the dogpiling in the chat. Thank you. The positive dogpiling. We should promote positive dogpiling, guys. I think that's a new thing we should do. If somebody's getting dogpiled negatively by someone else, we should just come in and be like, I totally agree with you. I think that would be amazing. Let's start that now. Other arguments, I think, as much as I find Richard Dawkins annoying, no offense, Richard Dawkins, you're annoying though, and some of your social attitudes are bad takes. But your discussions around the blind watchmaker. So the watchmaker analogy is that when you find a watch in a beach or whatever, I don't know why it's a beach, but you can tell it's been handcrafted because it's so complex. I think that there's an issue with that Richard Dawkins brings up, which is like there's parts of anatomy in different animals, including humans, that doesn't make much sense in terms of if a designer was to design it, especially a perfect designer. why would they have designed it that way? Why are there multiple different designs for wings, for instance? Why are there multiple different designs for echolocation? Why is a major nerve in the giraffe? Why does it go from their head down past under their heart back up into their head? When the shortest route would just be through their head. There's various different different like anatomical things that kind of aren't right or would show that it's not designed. So I think that that's a really strong argument. I think the argument from evil as well. We go back to this all-loving God. And philosophical guys in chat, if you want to correct me on any of this stuff, please do. But why would a all-loving God allow evil? Atheists don't think it's evil per se, like in a mystical sense, but for a Christian, it would be considered evil. Acts of evil or like things that are evil in the world. Why would a God create that evil? Is the issue. And then there's the God of the gaps argument, which is like kind of an additional one, which is the more we find out, the less God explains. So the explanatory power for God goes down, whilst the explanatory power for other things such as evolution and like physics and stuff like that goes up. And I think there'll always be a gap. God will always fill it, but the fact that we can explain stuff now that God was used to explain before kind of shows you that there's an element of replacement there, or using him as an explanation for why things happen, rather than him actually being the thing that makes it happen. So those are the most convincing arguments for me. And you can prove a negative. And if you're into science, you know that you can prove a negative because that's what the null hypothesis is. So we can prove at some point when he's falsifiable, because that's what proving a negative is, that God doesn't exist, but he's not falsifiable at the moment. We can falsify elements of God's impact on the world, but not God himself. So like we can falsify prayer, for instance, which we've done many times. So yeah, there you go. People that say you can't prove a negative, watch the stream, get land. It might have been a bit too savage. I'm sorry, but stop saying it. The decreasing need of supernatural explanations is less expected on theism than non-theism, and so evidence for atheism. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly my thoughts. Dang, I'm not going to read that out. Brina, you can steal all the answers you want. And Philip, the null hypothesis is not the default. No. Oh, I have a whole video on this. I'm not going to go into it. Cool. Reset. And I got told off for saying what the question number was. So I'm not going to say the question number. We're just going to move on to the next question.
Question 5. What arguments or other evidence do you find most convincing, interesting, or thought-provoking for the existence of a deity?
I like this question a lot. Let's subvert the expectations. Let's make atheists think about what is actually convincing. And I just want to read out a comment quickly from Beej. I don't know how to pronounce that because it's like there's an H in there. I usually phrase it as the historical precedent of naturalistic explanations falsifying supernatural ones increases the probability of my atheist argument. Weird black shape behind. Oh, it's my dressing gown. Oh, no camera now. My dressing gown. It's not a person. I'm getting trolled, guys, by people who know better. Who know better than me. This is all going to come to bite you on the ass, because Philip actually believes that rocks are atheists. That's something he actually believes. So if you ever see Philip Miller on a stream saying that he doesn't believe that rocks are atheists, he's lying. Just bear that in mind. Okay. We're going to move on. What arguments or other evidence do you find most convincing or interesting or thought-provoking for the existence of a deity? See, I'm going to go with convincing because I think that that's an honest approach. Um, Convincing. I think that the argument, and I don't know the argument in its entirety, but the argument for fine tuning is quite a strong one. Because the kind of like laws of physics that we see and the way things work in the universe seem finely tuned, and I can see why that would be compelling. And it has been compelling when I've gone into a thought hole about it. But for me, I think it's more of a case of um, rather than the universe being made to contain life, the universe was just able to contain life with how it developed, rather than it. Like, it's almost like it is probability at the end of the day, and I think that when you're thinking about probabilities and like um, very small probabilities, they almost seem impossible. Um, but the whole thing with the probability is no probability is too small for it to be possible, right? So for me, it's the fine tuning. I think is convincing, but not when you really start to think about it. You can kind of reverse it on its head. Um, I actually this is going to sound ridiculous, but I actually think if somebody was to come to me who I trusted, really trusted them and their opinions and stuff, and they were to tell me about a personal experience that they had, um, where there was God involved, and I'm quite literate in terms of like looking for mental health issues, trying to understand what's going on with someone's mental illness or their perception. If their perception's faulty, I think that if I didn't have any reason to think that they were under the influence of drugs or alcohol and that they weren't mentally ill in that moment, and they gave me a really solid personal testimony, I think that would probably be the most convincing thing for me. I don't think any kind of apologetics or logical argument currently is strong enough for me. We have necessary being and stuff, but I think that just because there's a first cause doesn't necessarily mean that there's a there's a um, sentient, um, powerful being behind it. I don't think that entails that at all. I think there's a big gap there that needs to be filled. And I think that um, even for deists, like I can see a deist god being more likely than one that's interventionist. But even then, it's just adding another extra layer of complexity to something that just doesn't seem to make sense to me. It's like why why is that explanation for it any stronger than like the multiverse explanation or anything like that? At the moment, it's not. So for me, the explanatory power of God is just too low, and then there's a big gap between the kind of like cosmological arguments and the end result of the biblical versions, or the holy text versions of those gods. Yeah. So fine tuning and personal testimony from someone who I trust, if I was to get that, which I've never got, other than already religious people, which I don't, because they're primed. If an atheist, if Joe had a real personal experience, and I was like, whoa, that's something, to listen to. I'm just gonna read some of the chat things quickly because there's some stuff going down. Bananas prove God. They do. They can explain the Trinity actually quite well, I think, but I think that always happens, Randolph, and I don't know how to fix it. So we'll just have to deal with it. You just have to look at me and think that's a bad dub. Maybe he's not even saying that. Maybe this is uh, somebody who is trying to trick us all. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next question.
Question 6. What behaviours do you see from your fellow atheists or non-theists that you'd most like to change?
This is a big question. Oh, can I pick more than one? Misusing scientific language, such as the null hypothesis, and uh, etc. Null hypothesis is the main one. Falsifiability, people misuse. The burden of proof is misused a lot. What else? I don't know. There's lots of stuff. I think people are mean and judgmental and demeaning and patronizing and try to make excuses for other people's behavior that allows them to have some sort of power dynamic. Yeah. So I think all of that, like, the religious is a mental illness, which Chris has just brought up in the chat. That's to do with the patronizing, belittling aspect of it. It's the same thing with the Santa Claus argument, right? It's just this whole, like, not showing respect. And like, you might have been mistreated by people who are religious in the past. I think, potentially that's the case, or you might feel like you've been abused in your religious background. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can insult and degrade someone halfway across the world who wasn't part of that system. Part of, right? Religions work very different in different countries, and in America, I think this is especially the case. It is bad. I won't, especially in the southern states, it is bad, but that doesn't mean that you have an excuse for being rude and angry and horrible to other people. Just it's not right. Um, and also, yeah, misusing scientific language, not learning about the topics that you speak about. It's not okay. Like, if you're going to use a term and then someone corrects you because you're using it wrong, you should take that on board. You're supposed to be a skeptic or a critical thinker. Like, that's what most atheists call themselves. Actually listen to people. Listen to people who are experts in the field, who are saying, look, it's better if you use it this way, and then you'll be a better skeptic or a better critical thinker because you'll be using the terms in the correct way. If you say null hypothesis or mental illness, and someone who's an expert in the field says that's not how those terms are used or that's not right, listen to them. If you're entrenched in your beliefs, you're not very skeptical or critical thinkery, are you? Critical thinkery. So yeah, I think it's the hypocrisy. It's the rudeness. It's the aggressiveness. It's the guardedness, and the misuse of terminology and not understanding what we're talking about. And that's it, basically, I think. I also want people to have a little interest in religion because they diss a lot of them outright without even knowing anything about them. And they're actually quite interesting. And it tells a story of human history. Religion's been a key part of our history, our development, and to just disregard it just because we use electric hobs now doesn't mean fire's out the window. Like, it's part of our society, and we need to look at that. Yeah, and we need to start to think about it and enjoy it. Like, and we might see it as mythology. That's fine, but it's not pointless, and it's bringing hope, joy, comfort, and community to a lot of people. There's stuff we can learn from religion. Need to be less biased and discriminatory. Uh, okay. Randolph, I'll answer that question at the end. No problem. Let me just see if I can finish this. I think it needs to be about 300 milliseconds behind, but I don't know how to use maybe. Oh, hello. Hello. I don't know how to change them. So you're just gonna have to deal with it. Okay, cool. Right, I'm gonna go on to the next question now. Thanks, guys.
Question 7. Religion brings people together as a community. It offers support, various rituals that bring family together to help deal with death and all that sort of thing. But what does your local atheist community do to support folks in this regard? If either you have no local atheist community or your local community doesn't do anything, what sort of things would you like to see from an atheist community in this regard?
So this is actually an important topic for me. I am in the process of writing a book that I've been in the process of writing a book for ages, since the start of this year. Maybe even last year. About this very topic, essentially. I don't have a local atheist community. The closest thing I have is South East London's Secular Humanism Society. But when I started getting their emails, I was a bit like, well, they weren't meeting up because of COVID, which is fair enough. But when I started getting their emails, I was a bit disappointed, because it was less about that community and more about like, and it's good work. It's like doing stuff in like sending letters and stuff, like a bit like Amnesty International, about atheist problems in the country, or making sure everyone signs the census in the right way and stuff like that. It's more activism stuff, and I don't mind that. It's not what I want from an atheist community. And secular humanism is kind of like, it's not entirely an atheist community, but it's almost there. It's like the closest thing you're going to get, apart from something like the atheist community of Austin. So locally, there's not much, but I live in a secular country. It's not like me being an atheist is an issue. I don't have to hide it. What I would like to see is more atheists trying to come together to kind of like help each other with bereavement, or finding out what purpose is, especially new atheists, people who have just become atheist out of a religious religious denomination or something, and they're trying to find their way. They're trying to replace the things that religion had for them. So like, how do they get comfort now? How do they get connectivity with other people? How do they consolidate the fact that they are going to die and that's the end? How are they going to ensure that they feel like they have a purpose? All of these things need to be replaced if somebody's had religious beliefs in the past, right? Because if you don't replace them, you end up in a nihilistic attitude. And I would like to see the atheist community focus more on these positive things, rather than just tearing religion down and fighting religion and countering apologetics and stuff. I think that what you'll see, actually, it's a bit like counterintuitive, but I think that if you start to say, look, all these things that religion can provide, atheism can provide as well. You don't have to believe in God to have these things. I think that you'll actually see more people become atheists when they're shown that, rather than saying, you know what, the Kalam cosmological argument isn't very good. Average religious person isn't going to believe in that, isn't going to understand that, isn't going to care about that. So if they're having doubts about their belief, you saying that the Kalam cosmological argument is rubbish isn't going to change a thing. But let's focus on the stuff that actually causes people to believe. Psychological research suggests that it's nothing to do with apologetics. That's just kind of like a very small percentage of religious people. It's more about the comfort, the community, and the kind of the social perks that you get from being religious. That's what's more likely to cause someone to be religious. So Randolph has said, I run a national atheism organization. We will be organizing community get-togethers and other community-oriented events soon now that COVID-19 is no longer putting a stop to this. Good. I'm glad that's happening. Please don't make it just about how Christianity or other religious things is rubbish. Yes, okay, right. One of our objectives is specifically to not be going on the attack against religions. We prefer to focus on better quality of life for atheists. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah? That needs to be the focus of all, well, not all, but like a lot of atheists online and stuff. Yeah, and we should stop having this battle with religious people. Because it's not going to work. And it's not the average believer is not going to care. Yeah. In fact, I'm not even sure. Like, I don't really like this. Like, it is what it is. Like, evangelical version of atheism, where you're kind of trying to convert people. That to me makes me feel uncomfortable. So, and also I think I want the atheist community to be more accepting of different forms of atheism and not labeling other people with their version of it. You know, because I think atheism's personal. There's different definitions, as we all know, but I think people need to accept that people use specific labels in a specific way, and that's okay. You don't need to be using your label. It's silly. Ran over. Next question. I think this is the the hard question, which is going to take me some time to process and explain. So,
would you like to see from an atheist community in this regard? Question 8. Do you think moral statements like it is wrong to torture a small child for fun express truth? If yes, what do you think makes it true? For example, is it the society, the people, or is it true regardless of what people believe? If no, what do you think it actually expresses? Is it emotions or intuitions, or are you giving people instructions?
I love Joe's face again. This is a hard question because, so do moral statements express truth? Short answer is yes. I'm going to say yes to this question. I think there is objective moral lines. Where does this truth come from? I think is the hard part of this question. I'm going to take Julian Baggini's lead on this because, again, I'm not a real philosophical person, right? But in A Short History of Truth, which is a great book, I suggest you read it. There's a chapter. Let me just find out what the chapter's called. I've got it right here because I'm a nerd. Called Moral Truths. Obviously, what the book looks like. Got some tabs. Where he discusses about this kind of topic, and he talks about how rationality doesn't necessarily need to lead us to truth as much as we think it does. Like, and he uses the example of a psychopath. It is a generic psychopath. It's not specific. Like, he's not a psychologist, so I don't expect him to get the definition entirely correct. But what he says is that psychopaths lack empathy, not rationality. And I think that is the key to my answer to this question. That empathy is understanding other people feel things, and that they might feel different to you about stuff, and they may experience things in a different way, they may take things in a different way, but also that everyone has a feeling, everyone has an emotion reaction, right? And that other people can feel pain, can feel heartache, can feel distress, and that is the evolutionary reason why we don't hurt other people. Yeah, and the evolutionary kind of line for that is that in order to form social groups, we shouldn't have been hurting other people, right? But I think you can actually draw some objectivity here, because if you find out, like, the more facts you learn about the universe and about people specifically, the more you're guided into moral situations, moral judgments and stuff. So if you are torturing a child, for fun, a fact might be that you learn that torture causes extreme pain. Yeah. So that might be a fact you learn. The fact you also will learn is that children have experiences. Children feel pain, etc., etc. And basically, you'll go down this line, and then the more facts you learn, the more you realize that actually torturing children is wrong, because you wouldn't want to be in that situation. You wouldn't want to feel that pain, and then you wouldn't do it because of that reason. So for me, the more facts you learn about that stuff makes it more true. Not makes it more true, makes you realize that it is true. That moral statements express truth. Yeah, that's my view. So, and an example of this is that a lot of offending behavior occurs when people have distorted views of reality, such as like thinking that, like if we think about myths around, I'm going to use trigger warning. I'm going to use SA. So, if we think about myths around sexual assault, such as, you know, he was out late at night, deserved it. She was wearing a short skirt, she deserved it. You know, stuff like that. Actually, when you look at the facts, you realize that none of those actually influenced the statistics or anything like that, and therefore, you kind of realize that it's not her fault at all, and that thing was immoral. Even if you hold those beliefs before and think that, well, it's her fault, she shouldn't have been doing this, right? So that's kind of what I mean. For instance, once you learn that people who are gay can't control that, they don't choose to be gay or not be gay. you realize that, okay, that's not a choice, it's them as an individual. Yeah. And then you can become more accepting of that. That for me is really the key to it. So yeah, I think morality is objective, and I think that it is based in truth, and I think that truth is a collection of facts put together, rather than it just being the statement true on its own accord. Oh, how did I do? Was that okay? Next question. Oh, I'm using the wrong mouse. Sorry.
Number 9. If there was one theistic religion you had to choose to be true, what would it be and why? And no cop-outs saying the spaghetti monster or anything like that.
I haven't actually thought about this question. I would choose theistic religion that I would choose to be true. I think I would choose Protestant Christianity, C of E type Christianity, for a couple of reasons. First reason, it's what I know. I know what to expect. I know what the god's like. This is, oh, but he's such a bad god. But I had a caveat that I would choose to be like ignorant of the bad side of stuff a little bit. You know how there's some Christians that are like kind of a bit ignorant to like the bad stuff in the Bible, and they think that God is loving, caring, and fatherly and merciful and stuff like that. Without all these, like, you don't think about these broader philosophical concepts like the problem of evil and stuff like that. I think that God sounds amazing. I think that God sounds good, actually, and I would like that. The problem is that the Bible is full of bloodshed, and the Old Testament God especially is very chaotic, a bit chaotic, emotionally unstable. I'm sure that's blasphemy. I'm sorry, anyone who's watching who was offended by that comment, but it's funny. Yeah, I think I'd choose Christianity just because it's what I'm used to. But I wouldn't want to be aware of the I would never choose Mormon, Dave. I would never choose Mormon. Because like I feel like with Christianity you can kind of delve into it a little bit and still be like, well, there's 2,000 years of history here, there's lots of explanations for things, but Mormonism, like as soon as you go under the surface, it's clearly a scam. it's clearly a it's clearly a pyramid scheme. so 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 no, I couldn't choose Mormonism. Christianity, basic answer. Apologies, I'm a basic bitch. Let's carry on.
Question 10. Do you enjoy any theistic content? If so, which channels would you recommend to your fellow atheists and non-theists? If not, are there any theistic channels that you've seen that do present some good arguments, even if you don't agree with their conclusions?
So I don't watch that much theistic content. I watch a bit. I usually watch responses to atheist content and seeing how people perceive atheism like that. But there is a couple of them that I have watched. I think Braxton is great. I think he does a very good job of having a conversation with atheists and being honest with his answers, whether we like them or not. I think that's a very admirable response. Sometimes when he's saying like it's just how it is, I don't necessarily like it, but that's how it is, right? So Braxton Trinity Radio, I think, is pretty decent. I think it's worth watching people who have religious channels and stuff in order to understand their perspective. And I have done that a little bit. I've watched like Daniel Ray and his community of people. They have conversations with atheists sometimes, and they seem okay. But then there's been recent issues with them that have changed my mind somewhat. It's a shame because it was a good start. Elephant philosophy. There you go, Dave. I said it. Yeah, I don't really watch too much, to be honest. But I talk with my friends who are theists a lot. So if you want some good theistic content, go to my channel and watch Ask a Theist and Ask an Atheist. I'm plugging myself now.
And that's it. That's the end of the questions. I look forward to viewing or reading your responses. And maybe if you post anything interesting enough, we can have you on to discuss it with us as well. We've already got an invitation sent out to a secular theist who responded to our video to explain
That happened yesterday.
his perspective on
Go
things.
watch it.
And we'd like to extend that invitation to anyone who has particularly interesting answers.
Dave, can you put a link for that chat that you had with the secular theist into the chat? It'd be much appreciated. Philip is wondering what the issues with Daniel Ray were. I'm sure Philip can educate me more on that than I can educate him on that. Oh dear. I had similar issues with Sarah Salviander that Philip had with Daniel Ray. So if you not the same issues, but I think Philip's was a bit more prolonged than mine was. So yeah, it's worth seeing an interaction though, because it's a whole conversation around defined hiddenness, and it's how I learned about defined hiddenness. So there you go. Okay, I am gonna. Randolph asked me a question to ask at the end, so I'm gonna do that quickly. I think we've been streaming for over an hour though, so I won't be spending too much longer here. I'll wait for my camera to come back on. I don't know why it does that. It's so annoying. I have a question for you to answer at the end. Which of these 10 questions did you find the most interesting, and which did you find the least interesting? So I don't think I had one that was least interesting, actually. And I'm not just saying that because I like Joe and Hunters and Reason a lot. I'm saying that because I think they're all very good questions and they make you think. I did say to Joe before he was going to put them out that these questions are harder than the theist ones, but it's funny. It's good. it's making atheists think, and people. I think atheists especially need to think. But the one I found the most interesting was probably this one. I think that it really does make you think about why we either think of uh, morality being objective or subjective. And I think there's an easy answer to say it's just subjective because there's no like God to enforce the rules or whatever. And that to me is a bit of a cop out. It shows a very like shallow kind of thought process into it because there's so many things that entailed like come out of that. If you think morality is subjective, then you can get into justification for pretty much any kind of moral behavior or immoral behavior. So yeah, I think that this one is a good one. It certainly made me think and have to read up and stuff and justify my beliefs to myself, which was good because I've learned stuff. Um, so yeah, I think that's the answer to your question. I'm just reading. Beej put in the chat. Daniel Ray told me it's impossible for a scientific experiment to test the natural world as if unguided. Because scientists conduct the experiment, thus demonstrating sentient intent on all things. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's going to be in my brain for a while now. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And David's put in the chat. You'll have to find it when you come back. But he's put the link to the chat with Andy B, who's a secular theist, into this chat. I might put it into my thing description as well. But I think that's where I'm going to wrap things up today. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys joining me on this journey of self-discovery and understanding what my beliefs are and trying to explain them. Thank you, Rena, Philip, Trolley Dave, Randolph, Icarus, Beej. Did I miss anyone important? Probably. So apologies if I did. But thank you all for joining. Please, if you're watching this back, now if you're watching it, like, subscribe if you haven't already, share it, and have a good night, and see you another time. Bye!